Lennox Linton, welcome to Le Grand Oral.
Thank you very much, Gordon Henderson. C'est un grand plaisir.
All right, well, Le Grand Oral because you are in Paris, France, and it's part of your worldwide, what would you call it, campaign? What, your worldwide
Tour.
tour, your worldwide tour. Before we get into the gist, could you please introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Lennox Linton, born and raised in the Commonwealth of Dominica. That's 300 square mile island between Guadeloupe and Martinique in the Caribbean. I went to school there. I worked there. I worked in a number of other Caribbean islands as well as a communications practitioner, journalist, broadcast journalist, print as well. And I also worked in Dominica and the other Caribbean islands in the field of human resource management and logistics, customer service, supply chain management as well for a Fortune 500 company that had located its Caribbean operations in Dominica. Well, the Caribbean operations were headquartered, the manufacturing was headquartered in Dominica, and I was part of the executive management team of that for a number of years. And I, last year in September, 1st of September, I accepted the leadership of the United Workers' Party, which is currently the party in opposition in Dominica.
When were you last in office? UWP.
The United Workers' Party served a single term in government in 1995 to 2000. It was the party was formed in 1988 under the leadership of Edison James, and it was under his leadership that the party went into government in 1995, and the people of Dominica witnessed the busiest, most effective 4.5 year period in government in terms of getting things done that would modernize the economy and put it on course for the kind of growth that the experts say Dominica needs, 3 to 5% we're hearing.
You are at the head of the party. How long have you been? I think you just mentioned it.
Yes, since September 1st. The party's annual convention was in the Castle-Roos constituency, and I was elected unopposed as the leader of the party.
From all accounts, it would seem that you are growing in popularity from that very day. And what changes do you want to implement in Dominica?
Well, I'm fortunate to be part of a movement for change in Dominica that goes back some ways. For some time now, the people of Dominica have been unhappy with the quality of governance that we have had ever since this Labour Party came into office, but more specifically since Roosevelt Skerrit took over as Prime Minister of the country in 2004. We saw a pattern of governance that Dominicans have become increasingly uncomfortable with, because it has been largely about a group of ministers looking out for themselves as opposed to looking out for the best interests of the country. We have seen our diplomacy being prostituted. We have seen our passports being sold on the international community, and immunity normally reserved for diplomats serving their countries ending up in the hands of crooks and criminals. We had a classic example in 2012 where one of our diplomatic passports ended up in the hands of a gentleman by the name of Francesco Corallo.
But isn't there some form of due diligence that would prevent
So
that?
we're told. We're told that there is some kind of due diligence that is supposed to prevent that from happening. But notwithstanding these due diligence measures that are being handled by so-called reputable international firms, we see a number of criminals and crooks coming through the cracks and actually getting possession of our passports, getting possession of diplomatic immunity, which they can now use in defense of their criminal activities around the world. We believe this is a danger to global security, and we have been very passionate that the government should change its ways in that regard. It is unacceptable that in the case of Francesco Corallo, the government pretends it did not know that the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations of 1961, Article 42, would have prevented somebody like this gentleman who had significant for-profit commercial interests in Italy from having immunity on Italian soil.
That makes him
ineligible for the benefit that Dominica was willing to confer on him, obviously in exchange for monies that ended up in the pockets of politicians in Dominica.
Quite interesting.
And we have a problem with that, a serious problem, because it compromises our governance and it tells the rest of the world that we are not prepared to engage honestly with the global community. We are not prepared to pursue the goals and dreams of enlightened diplomacy, where we are pursuing our best, our own enlightened self-interest in partnership with friends around the world. The diplomacy of this government, the foreign policy of this government has all been self-serving for the ministers of government and what is it they can get for themselves, as opposed to how they can advance the cause of a better Dominica.
We know that you hosted a very popular radio show and you broke a number of stories that got money back into the National Treasury. And this involved on numerous occasions elected officials. Could you speak to us about that?
The one I remember very well had to do with the purchase of garbage bins for the Roseau City Council, where the government was paying a price that was almost 10 times higher than the retail price of the bins in the United States for a volume of over 2,700 garbage bins. Now, if you're buying one, you get it for $14. The government was buying wholesale
in bulk
2,700 and purchasing each of them for over $100. And those were 32-gallon bins with no wheels, a plastic 32-gallon bin with no wheels and so on. And the government was prepared to pay over $100 US for one of those. Well, we felt right up front that something was wrong. And when we did the investigation, indeed, something was very wrong. And there you had the government using the half-brother of a minister of government to source these bins out of Pennsylvania. And to this day, we don't know whether the government actually purchased the bins. There are all sorts of stories about we getting them through some deal or the other for free, and then this arrangement coming where an invoice is set up so that the government, some money can be siphoned out of the treasury.
So how did this turn up at the end?
We mounted a campaign saying to the government that this was an act of corruption, it was not right, and the money should be refunded. And the Prime Minister eventually, back in 2009, June, somewhere around there, went to the nation, came to the nation with an address and indicated that they had been in touch with the supplier of the bins, who is the minister's half-brother, and he had agreed to make a refund of the monies that had been paid in excess. This was a blatant act of theft, and the government was embarrassed. It was shamed into doing the right thing, which is putting back the money in the treasury, by the action we had taken from an investigative journalism point of view to expose the fraud and to insist that something be done about it. There was also the question of the Prime Minister's purchase of land for his own private dwelling and for some villas that he had in an area of the north of the country, where the revenue now, the country was being defrauded by the Prime Minister's lawyer, undervaluing the land for the purpose of paying lower taxes than are due to the revenue. In one case, we were able to expose that, and the Prime Minister... So
there were two cases?
There were different cases. There was a case of one piece of land in an area called Beaubois, where the taxes were underpaid by over $51,000. Those monies were refunded. There's another case where the taxes were underpaid by over $38,000. That has not been refunded. And there's another case where the price of the land revealed in court documents under oath turns out to be $120,000 more than was declared for the land of the villas, and therefore taxes are due on an additional $120,000 worth of land. So we've been grappling with a lot of corruption of the public interest, so that ministers of government and Mr. Skirton's ministers of government can make off like bandits with millions and millions of dollars. And that is why, at the same time, the business of the country is not being taken care of. We have an economy that is underperformed. We have the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank in his most recent review of the economies of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union telling us that the growth of 1.9%, which is projected for 2004, is unsustainable for these islands. They need to grow faster at the rate of 3 to 5%. This is the target of the Monetary Council for the islands. Mr. Skerritt, the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, sits on the Monetary Council. He has never, up to this day, engaged the people of Dominica in a discussion as to how the economy of Dominica can be restructured so that it be put in a position to grow at the rate of 3 to 5%. Now, we have been on to this, our party, since last 5-6 months. And we have been saying our economy needs to grow by 5 to 7%. And because we have underperformed all the other economies in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union in terms of employment, in terms of attracting foreign direct investments, in terms of earning foreign exchange, because we are so far behind the others, there is scope for us to grow faster than them, and the 5 to 7%
because you need to catch up.
You have to catch up. You have to do some catching up. So we have been able to put together plans for renewing, rethinking, and rebuilding the economy, where we focus specifically on the engines of growth, those that the government are not doing anything with, and those that the government has completely neglected. So our plans are focusing on a new agriculture, the tourism that positions us in the eco niche, the information communication technology, how we take advantage from the upsurge in technological advancements around the world, and the whole business of manufacturing, light manufacturing, especially where we can get into areas like light manufacturing, agro-processing, where we can utilize all of those fruits in Dominica that right now are going to waste, a lot of which are going to waste. We have to do a better job with our renewable energy. We have focused a lot past years on geothermal, which really, based on the way the government is doing it, has gone nowhere fast. But we are way behind on initiatives in solar and wind energy, while the other islands have gone much further than us, not because the sun shines more over there than that. We have as much sunshine and more sunshine than most of these islands, but yet we find ourselves in a position where we're not utilizing the resources, and we are much more dependent on fossil fuels and our carbon footprint, which needs to be reduced so that we can fulfill the dream, the goal of becoming the best place to live, the best place to work, the best place to enjoy life, because we are the nature island of the Caribbean and can become the nature island of the world, except that the government has not been paying attention to these fundamentals.
Well, I know we don't have much time left. You have been speaking to Dominicans across the globe, but you are here in Paris, France, and I noticed that you've been paying particular attention to our French neighbors, wherever they are, in Martinique, Guadeloupe, in Paris. What can we do with them?
Well, we are in the process of building an alliance with our Dominicans overseas. Over the years, a number of Dominicans who've been unable to find the ladders of economic opportunity, the ladders of social advancement that they've needed, have ventured offshore. They've gone to the United States. They have gone to England. They have gone to Canada. They've gone to the neighboring islands of the Caribbean, French departments of Guadeloupe and Martinique. Specifically with respect to Guadeloupe and Martinique, we sit in the center of Guadeloupe and Martinique. And so far, we have not found a technique to move countries from one location in the sea to another. So for as long as we are around, we are going to be between Guadeloupe and Martinique, which places us not just in the middle of France and the Caribbean, but in the middle of some important European connections in the Caribbean. And that means for us that we have to engage with our brothers and sisters there, specifically, but in a broader context, with the people of Martinique and Guadeloupe who are our neighbors, have been our neighbors, and will continue to be our neighbors. That doesn't change. So now we have to find better ways to connect, the transportation arrangements. We have to find better ways to bring the cultures closer. And so that initiatives like the World Creole Music Festival, which we launched back in...
that was a UWP initiative.
We launched it in 1997, within 2 years of our administration, to show you the capacity for visionary thinking within this political organization. 17 years later, it is still the most important tourism promotion event on the calendar. But as an institution that has grown to benefit musicians and artists in Dominica and to advance the economy, we have not seen much progress, which means that there's an opportunity waiting for us to come back into government now for us to show how it is done. Because we're passionate about the cultural industries. We're passionate about how young creative talent from Dominica can flower on a global level to the benefit of self and country. And we will get the right sort of exposures. We will expand the festival into new areas so that it is doing a lot more for us in Dominica than it has done. Because if you look at it well, this festival has stagnated. And that's very unfortunate. So we have sports and culture that we have to look after better. We have the water industry in Dominica that can do so much for us, but is underperforming. And of course, we spoke about renewable energy. So we're looking at a fundamental restructuring of the economy to allow it to grow by 5 to 7% and to deliver. We have promised the people of Dominica, and this would be important for their brothers and sisters in Martinique and all around the world, Guadeloupe and so on, that we have promised that we can do what is necessary to have 5,000 new jobs created in Dominica in the first 3 years of our administration.
Is this a promise?
Yes. This is a promise as much as it is a commitment, because it's a promise and a commitment that is born out of careful analysis, and it is born out of an appreciation of the capabilities of our team.
Speaking of analysis, it's in the air that you may be debating the Prime Minister. And I heard on the radio that you proposed one of your top colleagues in your team, Dr. Fountain, to debate as well.
Well, what we have done is said simply to the government that you cannot continue with this situation where politicians from either side of the political divide do not sit down in a civil environment and talk about issues, trade argument for the better public understanding of what is really going on.
This is not done right.
The Prime Minister does not do that. He backs away from every single opportunity to debate. And we have a very interesting situation in the Parliament of Dominica where the party leading Parliament will not debate. And they're trying to unite the country with hate. It's not going to work. So we have said to the Prime Minister, listen, we need 3 debates before the next election. We were ready to debate you on the economy. Our Finance and Economy Minister will be Dr. Thomson Fontaine, former IMF economist. He has returned from a very prestigious position at the International Monetary Fund that took him all around the world, working with economies that were in trouble. And he has returned to Dominica to be a candidate in the next election on the United Workers' Party ticket. He will be our Minister for Finance and the Economy. And we're asking the Prime Minister, who is Minister for Finance and Economy now, to debate him on the economy. We are also asking him to debate me, as the incoming leader, on the foreign policy position of Dominica, right? And what is best for us in that regard. Right. And the other debate we're proposing is one on governance, good governance and the rule of law. And what we have said, taking it forward, is we're ready to do the economic debate at the end of February, last Wednesday in February. We're ready to do the foreign policy debate last Wednesday in March. And we're ready to do the governance debate last Wednesday in April. Now, if those dates are not convenient for the Prime Minister, he can always propose others. We're willing to work with him, but the country needs a discussion among its leaders as to what the way forward on those critical areas should be.
Well, sounds very, very, very good. It's a pity we can't speak any longer. We've come to the end. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Lennox Linton with us. Lennox Linton, leader of the United Workers' Party of Dominica. And as the polls reveal, probably the next, is there a probably? Well, the next Prime Minister.
The people are saying more and more incoming Prime Minister.
Incoming Prime Minister. It has been a pleasure.
All the best. Thank you very much. I'll take grand plaisir. Thank you very much.